So I think it is pretty clear that there is going to be a lot of pain in the commercial real estate market. We are starting to hear rumblings of extend and pretend. I will acknowledge that I think some of that will come, no question, but it will be to the biggest, the deepest bench, the people with a reputation in the business. I
Mhm.
think there's going to be plenty of opportunities. In order to dig in this conversation, I first want to do the marketing thing with Mr. Stephen
Yes.
Dow from Velocity Mortgage. What is that?
That would be again, although I work very happily for Velocity Mortgage Capital, all the ideas and topics discussed on this channel that are my own. So let's do another exciting episode.
There you go, man. So one of the things that I think is interesting is you and I brought to market this 50-40-10, your 90% CLTV loan. It's been
Hmm.
very prevalent, but probably more on single family homes and small
Right.
residentials.
Right.
I am starting to envision
Hmm.
a commercial seller
Hmm.
who is stuck on 2021 and 2020 prices,
Hmm.
who has owned the property for a decade or more, maybe owns it free and
Hmm.
clear,
Hmm.
that maybe we could do bigger deals with the 50-40-10. And basically what I'm thinking is, obviously velocity comes in at 50%. We give the seller their price,
Right.
but they take back the 40% at a low rate, maybe
Right.
delayed payments.
Right.
There's a lot of way to structure terms,
Yep.
but give them their price.
Right.
What do you think of this? I think we've done a little disservice. I think we've been 50-40-10 on homes, but I'm starting to think it might be something that works in commercial.
Oh, obviously, because then I mean the same components that would be required for a residential in order for us to do this would apply the same thing for on the commercial side. It's just if the seller has enough equity and is willing to carry, enough of a second to kind of make up the gap so that the buyer just only has to come down with as little as 10% or whatever's needed. And if the terms make sense so that it'll at least cash flow from day one, everybody wins. So seller typically gets a lower, initial capital gains hit, also gets a little bit of passive income from that second that they're carrying. And then they're off market and getting the price that they want versus getting lowballed to death, because especially for most of those types of sellers that you're looking for that are motivated,
Yeah.
sitting for a while. And so that doesn't really, allow for the seller to get a lot of great, offers if you're sitting there for, half a year or more. So anyway, this does allow for both parties, I think, to kind of, it's a win-win situation given certain circumstances, just to make sure that everybody truly gets what they truly want in the end. But it's possible.
Yeah, I think I mean, it just feels like some of these opportunities are coming, right? Again, I bought a lot of stuff from tired landlords who want out.
Hmm.
I know that they're going to be fixated on 2020 and 2021 prices.
Hmm.
I also know they know that interest rates are high. I just think if you go in and you have a conversation, the key to making the 50-40-10 is conversations,
True.
multiple conversations.
100%.
You can come in and buy a $2 million apartment. You could give the seller 60% cash because they're going to get my
Hmm.
10%. They're going to get your 50%. So they're
Right.
walking away with a pile of money.
Right.
And then they just carry back 40%. Maybe it's a
Right.
delayed, because you could get these seconds could be very creative. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
give you, you know, 5% of it every other year, or
Right.
no payments for 5 years, or
Right.
whatever. The key in the environment we are in is you could give the seller their price, but you
Hmm.
have to make them understand you need your terms because you want
Right.
to hold it. You want to
Right.
invest. You want to
Right.
upgrade. You want to
Right.
turn over the tenants.
Yeah.
I just think there's some huge win out there if people are willing to do the work and have multiple
100%.
conversations.
Oh, agreed. I mean, again, it's going to be more complex of a transaction just because a lot of times there's just more moving parts to it. So, but I think if you take the time to kind of learn, the system a little bit, or at least the initial framework, and then kind of divide up your, uh, you know, knowledge gathering of how to structure it, in certain compartments so that you understand the full big picture of how to approach that type of scenario. Because again, I think it's going to have more moving parts, especially depending upon property type. If it's a mixed use, if it's, office space or this, that. So, but generally speaking, it's going to have the same core, necessities of is the seller motivated? Do they have enough equity? Do they need all their money right away from the sale of the property? Anything of that sort, you can kind of, figure out whether or not it's even feasible from the beginning. But just that initial, conversation to start it off, and then multiples after that, because a lot of times the seller's not going to really understand maybe some of the dynamics. A lot of times their representation as far as, the real estate agent or whatnot, they may not know. And so they might kind of muddy up the waters unnecessarily because, oh, this is illegal or this or that. So just they don't have the deeper understanding. So it takes, you got to be assertive. You can't just like, oh, it's going to fall out of the sky if I say, so it's just, yeah, you got to do the work, man. Like the hat and everything else behind you says, you got to do the work.
Yeah. I think that's going to be the key. Again, I think there are some pretty significant opportunities coming because, again, when I look at the commercial market, lending is down. If you could find a commercial loan today that used to be 75% LTV, now they're 65. A lot more, lot higher rates, prepayment terms. I just think there's a way to use this CLTV loan, 90% CLTV that you and I, kind of beat into the 50, 40, 10
Yeah.
to give everybody a chance to win. It takes multiple conversations. You may
Uh-huh.
have to go through a confused real estate agent. Talk
Right.
about, what do you do with the cash? Cash is a problem.
Right.
Taxes,
Right.
cash
Right.
flow, headaches. I know
Yeah.
you've done some of these one rental at a time. Fans have done them, but they've been houses. I want to
Mm-hmm.
challenge folks to try to do one of these in a commercial property. And oh, by the way, 30-year fixed rate. Let's
Right.
not forget that. All this nonsense about commercial loans blowing up. You help me with my multifamily, my apartments,
Right.
my
Right.
office, or my mixed use, 30%
Right.
or 30-year fixed rate money.
30-year fix. Yep.
30-year fix. Sorry.
And it was, and the timing, like with anything in
Yeah,
life, was
we don't need to remind
we don't,
people. It's okay.
we don't need to remind you how good of how genius of a move that was. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people did the same thing. A lot of people listened,
Yeah.
and shout out to Will, Big Will in Florida.
There you go. There you go.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So again, folks, I want to ask you to step up. Think about doing this commercial. If you want to have a conversation with Steven, how do they do that?
Just email again, Scott. I mean, as I'm looking at as I'm talking to the video, I'm reading emails. SDAO@velocitymortgage.com. In the subject line, please put the acronym ORAAT, stands for one rental at a time, to make it past the firewall. Body of the email, maybe brief description, what you're looking for. Address would be very helpful, at least city and state, to make sure I lend there, your mid FICO score, and the best phone number to reach you at, and I'll be in touch typically within 24, 48 hours.
Yeah. And again, folks, if you want to see a deep dive, I have a playlist, I think, on this channel called Deep Dive. He and I did a Saturday session. I think it was an hour or two to go through this math, mix, how to do a calculation on blended interest rate. It's all there for you. Just go look it up. And Steven, I thank you again.
You're welcome. I was just going to end up with saying it's probably going to take more of a phone call, because these types of scenarios going to take a little bit more of a meaningful conversation, because it's going to be too many back and forth emails. So phone call is always going to be best.
There you go, folks. Email him. He'll reach out. He's the man. He's helped dozens and dozens of folks, me, myself included. So take care.
Yes,
have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Michael. You too.